On a stormy night, what secrets can the winds whisper? This question lingered in Mariana's mind as she watched the raindrops sliding down the window of her isolated home. It was a place she had chosen to retreat from the world, but that night the loneliness became almost palpable. The storm roared outside as if the very sky were in fury, and Mariana's heart beat in time with the noise. She didn't expect that amidst the chaos a stranger would appear at her door, bringing with him a mystery that would change her life forever. Mariana was a woman in her early 30s, marked by losses and choices that had distanced her from her dreams. Since her mother's death 2 years ago, she had cocooned herself in a shell of sadness and detachment. The house, once filled with laughter and memories, now seemed an echo of lost recollections, and the storm only intensified her feeling of helplessness. For her, life had become a labyrinth of regrets and forgotten dreams, where each choice seemed to take her further away from who she truly was. That night, as the rain fell incessantly, an impulse of empathy overtook Mariana when she heard a faint knock on the door. Hesitant, she approached and opened the door, revealing a completely soaked man with a look that mixed desperation and gratitude. He introduced himself as Lucas, a traveler who had lost his way in the storm. Mariana, though cautious, could not ignore his need for shelter. With a sigh, she decided to let him in, and thus the two found themselves in a shared space where the silence became almost deafening. The night wore on, and as the storm roared outside, the two exchanged few words. Mariana noticed that Lucas's behavior was enigmatic. He watched her with a disquieting curiosity, as if studying every move she made. His gaze made her feel a mix of discomfort and fascination. What did he want? Who was this man really? The questions hammered in her mind, but the silent connection forming between them was undeniable. The next day, when the storm finally began to calm, Lucas said goodbye. However, before leaving, something unexpected happened. He called her by name, a name he had never heard before. This simple action left Mariana perplexed, and at the same time, intrigued. How did he know who she was? From that moment on, her life would become a frantic search for answers. What seemed like a coincidence transformed into a tangle of secrets and revelations. As the days passed, Mariana began to find clues left by Lucas. A forgotten object, a lost memory from her past, and events that defied logic. Each discovery took her deeper into a mystery that made her question not only Lucas's identity, but also the very life she had led until then. She found herself in a spiral of tension and uncertainty, struggling to understand the connections between them and what was truly at stake. The challenges Mariana faced were a reflection of her internal struggles. Since her mother's death, she felt that every wrong choice had distanced her from who she really was. Now, confronted with Lucas, she stood at a crossroads. What did he represent? A mere traveler, or someone sent to confront her with her past? Her interactions with friends and neighbors also reflected her struggles. They cared for her, but Mariana felt distant, as if her pain was a weight that no one could understand. Mariana's dream had always been to be an artist, but life had led her to a monotonous and soulless job. Each day felt like an echo of the previous one, and she remembered afternoons spent drawing and painting, moments that gave her life. This passion, however, had been buried under the weight of routine and pain. The encounter with Lucas awakened something within her, a flame she thought had gone out. Could she possibly reclaim that part of herself? As the mysteries unfolded, Mariana realized that the truth about Lucas could be the key to her own redemption. With each clue she found, she faced not only the unknown but also the ghosts of her own history. The choices that seemed insignificant now revealed themselves as crucial, and Mariana began to understand that life was a web of coincidences and decisions that shaped the future. The doubt that consumed her, was she ready for the truth, became increasingly urgent, and so, amidst the storm that had brought Lucas to her door, Mariana found herself faced with a choice: to remain in the safety of her solitude or to risk opening her heart to the unknown. The answer could change everything. What would she choose? Mariana sat at the small kitchen table, still confused after Lucas's departure. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, but the hot drink could not warm her heart. What did he want? And how did he know her name? These questions spun incessantly in her head, like the raindrops that continued to patter on the roof. Meanwhile, life around her seemed to go on, indifferent to the turmoil unfolding within her. That morning, her friend Anna, a woman with a vibrant spirit and always concerned for Mariana's well-being, decided to pay her a visit. Anna was one of those people who, even without trying, brought light and energy to any environment. She entered Mariana's home like a hurricane, bringing with her the joy that had been missing from the protagonist's life for so long. Anna said, "Hi, Mari. You need to get out more. This house can't be your only world," as she sat down at the table, observing Mariana with a worried look. "I know the storm was strong, but you can't let it bring you down." Mariana forced to smile, but the truth was she felt trapped in a snare of uncertainties. Anna's presence made her feel guilty for her own apathy. She wanted to be the person Anna believed she was, but doubt paralyzed her. "I'm just thinking about some things," Mariana replied, avoiding eye contact. It was hard to share her uncertainties, especially with someone who seemed so full of life. "Like what?" Anna insisted, leaning forward as if trying to penetrate the barrier Mariana had built around herself. "You know you can count on me, right?" Mariana hesitated. The image of Lucas, with his enigmatic gaze and the way he had called her name, invaded her mind. She wanted to tell Anna, but she was afraid of her reaction. What if Anna thought Mariana was going crazy? "It's just, I met someone. A traveler who showed up here on the night of the storm." "He knew my name, Anna. I don't know how, but he did." Anna raised an eyebrow, curiosity illuminating her face. "That's intriguing. And don't you think it could be an opportunity? A chance to connect with someone? To break out of this cycle?" Mariana felt a knot in her stomach. The idea of connecting with someone terrified her. What if Lucas was just a mirage, a projection of her own loneliness? "I don't know if I'm ready for that," Mariana murmured, looking at her hands. "What if he isn't who he seems? What if he ends up hurting me even more?" Anna shook her head, her determination evident. "Ari, life is full of risks. You can't live in fear of what might happen. Remember how you felt when you were painting. It was like the whole world disappeared. You need to find that part of yourself again." Anna's words echoed in Mariana's mind. She remembered the afternoons when she lost herself in her paintings, where each brushstroke was a form of liberation. But at the same time, a shadow of doubt loomed over her. Would she be able to rediscover that passion? And if Lucas was the key to that, or just a distraction? In the days that followed, Mariana struggled with her uncertainties. She began to search for Lucas, not just as a mystery, but as a way to find herself again. Every clue she found led her back to her own story, and her interactions with Anna became more intense. Anna encouraged her to go out, to rise again, but each step felt like a greater weight than the last. On one of those days, Mariana decided to visit the small local art gallery, a place she used to frequent before isolating herself. As she entered, a mix of nostalgia and anxiety washed over her. The walls were adorned with vibrant works, each telling a story that Mariana felt she could no longer share. While admiring a painting, an old friend, Tiago, approached her. He was an artist who had always believed in Mariana's talent. "Mariana, it's been a while. Do you still paint?" he asked, his voice full of enthusiasm. Mariana hesitated, doubt gnawing at her. "No, actually, I haven't been painting." Tiago frowned, concern evident in his gaze. "What do you mean? You've always had an incredible gift. Don't let sadness take over. You need to start creating again." His words awakened something deep within her. Mariana felt that while life continued to move, she was stagnant, and Lucas's presence, though enigmatic, seemed like an opportunity for change. But doubt persisted. What if she failed again? What if pain consumed her once more? That night, the storm returned, but this time, Mariana was determined to change her story. As thunder echoed outside, she grabbed a notebook and a pencil and began to draw. The lines that appeared on the paper reflected her emotions, and each stroke brought her closer to the truth she sought. The internal conflict Mariana faced was profound. The struggle between the desire to open up to the unknown and the fear of getting hurt was palpable. With each passing day, the pressure mounted, and she wondered if she could truly take the next step. Interactions with Anna and Tiago became a mirror of her own insecurities. Their expectations challenged her to rise again, but the shadow of doubt still lingered. Mariana began to realize that these relationships were more than simple conversations. They were opportunities for growth. With each new day, Mariana's struggle intensified. Would she be willing to face her fears and open her heart, not just to Lucas, but to the life waiting for her? Time would tell, but the battle for self-discovery had only just begun. Mariana immersed herself in her sketches, each line on the paper reflecting the confusion and pain she felt. The storm outside grew stronger, but within her, a silent battle raged. Raindrops tapped against the window, as if warning her that time was passing. She wondered if she could truly confront her fears and open her heart not just to Lucas, but to the world around her. In the days that followed, Mariana tried to focus on her drawings, but Lucas's presence seemed to haunt her. She didn't know whether she should seek him out or simply let him go. The fear of getting hurt again paralyzed her. Each time her thoughts drifted to him, a wave of insecurity washed over her. What did she really want? And more importantly, what did Lucas want from her? Anna, always optimistic, began to notice the change in Mariana's behavior. Instead of encouraging her to go out, she decided it was time to take a deeper step. During a conversation, Anna suggested that Mariana participate in an art workshop happening that weekend. It will be great for you. You can rediscover yourself and, who knows, even find new inspirations, Anna said, a sparkle in her eyes. Mariana hesitated. The fear of exposing her vulnerability in front of strangers made her want to retreat. However, the idea of connecting with others who loved art intrigued her. What if there was someone there who could understand what she was going through? Still, the doubt consumed her. What if I can't do it? What if I feel even more lost? Mariana questioned, her voice trembling. Anna, noticing her friend's hesitation, decided to open her heart. I have also gone through tough times. There are days when I feel like I'm not good enough. But Mari, it's in those moments that we need to allow ourselves to fail. What matters is that we are trying. Anna's words resonated with Mariana, but the shadow of uncertainty still lingered. That night, as she tried to sleep, she wondered if she could really allow herself to fail. The idea was terrifying. The fear of another failure kept her awake, and the memory of Lucas became increasingly confusing in her mind. On the day of the workshop, Mariana decided to take a risk. Upon arriving, she felt a flutter in her stomach. The room was filled with unfamiliar faces, each with their own stories and uncertainties. She sat in a corner and watched as others interacted, laughing and sharing experiences. The sense of strangeness grew within her. When the instructor asked everyone to introduce themselves and share what they hoped to learn, Mariana felt a pressure in her chest. Her heart raced, and the urge to hide was almost irresistible. But looking at Anna, who was beside her, she felt a surge of courage. "I'm Mariana. I'm here to try to rediscover myself, but I'm afraid I'm not good enough," she said, her words coming out in a whisper. The silence that followed was heavy, and Mariana wished she had stayed silent. The truth was, she didn't know if she had what it took to be an artist again. But, to her surprise, a woman sitting in a corner turned and smiled. "Me too," she said, her eyes shining. "We're all here to learn, and that means we're all in this journey together." The woman's words brought a slight relief to Mariana, but insecurity still accompanied her. During the activities, she battled with her own mind, which reminded her of her past failures. With every brushstroke, a painful memory surfaced. The feeling of not being good enough weighed her down. By the end of the day, Mariana felt exhausted, but something within her had changed. The workshop didn't transform her instantly, but it made her realize that the struggle was part of the process. The fear of exposing herself was still present, but she was beginning to understand that it didn't mean she shouldn't try. In the following days, the emotional pressure increased. Mariana felt torn between the desire to connect with Lucas and the fear of getting hurt. She began dreaming of him, and the images were disturbing, blending moments of joy and pain. At the same time, Anna and Tiago continued to encourage her, but their words began to sound like demands, and Mariana felt increasingly suffocated. One day, during a conversation with Anna, the tension reached a peak. "Murray, why don't you talk to him?" Anna asked, exasperated. "You're torturing yourself for nothing."
"He might be what you need." "What if he's not? What if he's just another disappointment?" Mariana replied, her voice trembling. "I can't go through that again." Anna, frustrated, tried to understand. "I just want you to be happy. You're refusing to see the possibilities. And what will happen if you keep this up?" Anna's words hit Mariana like an arrow. She realized that she was indeed depriving herself of living.
She wanted to scream, but her emotions were so mixed that she didn't even know how to express them. The tension between the friends grew, and Mariana found herself in a dilemma: to open up or to shut herself off even more. At the same time, Tiago kept trying to encourage her to start painting again. He invited her to an exhibition that would take place at the local gallery, where his work would be showcased. Mariana was excited, but soon the fear took over again. What if she had nothing to show? What if people didn't like what she created? The night of the exhibition arrived, and Mariana was a bundle of nerves. She looked at herself in the mirror, trying to convince herself that it was just another opportunity. But upon arriving at the gallery, anxiety enveloped her. The white walls were adorned with stunning artworks, and the feeling of inadequacy hit her hard. As she walked through the gallery, she saw Tiago chatting with other artists. He seemed so at ease, while Mariana felt like a stranger in her own world. She stepped away, observing the artworks, trying to find comfort in the art, but doubt and insecurity consumed her. It was then that, amidst the crowd, she saw Lucas. He was there, gazing at a painting with a lost look. Mariana's heart raced, and she felt paralyzed. What was he doing there? The memory of their conversations and the mystery surrounding him flooded her. The urge to approach him was strong, but fear held her back. As Mariana pondered, the laughter and conversations around her faded into distant noise. She was trapped in her own mind, questioning every decision she had made up to that point. What did she really want? What was stopping her from moving forward? The accumulated tension brought her to a breaking point. She abruptly turned and left the gallery, her breath quickening and her heart heavy. The confusion of feelings was intense and oppressive. Once she reached the sidewalk, tears began to stream down her face. What seemed like an opportunity for a fresh start had turned into yet another failure. As the tears fell, Mariana realized she needed to face her demons. The path wouldn't be easy, and the journey of self-discovery was far from over. But at that moment, she decided she couldn't let herself be defeated. The first step would be to confront Lucas and, more importantly, confront herself. Mariana's story was just beginning, and each twist would bring her closer to discovering who she truly was. It was time to open her heart, face her fears, and finally allow herself to live fully. Mariana left the gallery with her heart racing and her mind confused. The weight of insecurity followed her like a persistent shadow. Tears streamed down her face, and she felt that each drop carried with it a bit of the pain that had accumulated over the years. The glow of the city lights seemed distant, almost unrecognizable. What should have been a moment of celebration for her art turned into an emotional collapse. The pressure of exposing herself, of showing her vulnerability, and, most importantly, of confronting Lucas had become unbearable. What did she really want? The question haunted her, and she knew she needed answers. However, the thought of opening her heart to him felt scarier than any artistic failure she might have. The memory of the good times they had shared mingled with the fear of rejection, and Mariana found herself in a labyrinth of emotions. She wandered aimlessly through the streets, searching for a place where she could feel safe. The noise of traffic and the voices of people seemed like a distant echo, and the world around her became increasingly blurry. In her mind, she relived the scene at the gallery, Lucas there, so close yet so far away. The idea of approaching him made her stomach churn. What would she say? How could she explain to him the turmoil she felt inside? She sat down on a park bench, the night already advanced and the chill beginning to settle in. Tears continued to slip down her cheeks, and Mariana closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel the pain. It was a heavy feeling, but at the same time, liberating. She knew she had hidden for too long, avoiding what she truly desired. The fear of failing had become a prison, and in that moment of solitude, she realized she needed to confront her fears head-on. Enough, she thought. It was time to stop running away. The idea of failing paralyzed her, but what truly consumed her was the desire to connect, to live fully. The image of Lucas would not leave her. He represented both the possibility of love and the chance of pain. But it was that very love that gave her courage. If she wanted to be happy, she would need to take a risk. With renewed determination, Mariana got up from the bench and began to walk back home. With each step, she felt lighter, as if she were releasing the bonds that held her back. The chill of the night was now just a reminder of what awaited her. a new chance, a new opportunity. She didn't want to hide behind her fears anymore. She didn't want them to define her. Upon arriving home, she sat at her drawing table, the blank sheets staring back at her. The fear of not being good enough was still there, but Mariana decided she wouldn't let it stop her. She picked up her pencils and began to sketch, creating without worrying about the outcome. Each line she drew was a step towards self-discovery, an act of courage. In that moment, she realized that true success was not about pleasing others or creating a masterpiece. It was about allowing herself to be authentic, embracing her imperfections, and above all, being true to herself. This was a form of freedom. Mariana understood that what truly mattered was the journey, not the destination. With her heart still racing, she decided that the next morning she would seek out Lucas. She didn't know what she would say or how the conversation would unfold, but she was willing to face the possibility of rejection. It was time to be honest, not just with him, but with herself. By leaving her fears behind, Mariana felt as if she were finally allowing herself to live. The next morning arrived, bringing with it a wave of nervousness. Mariana looked at herself in the mirror, her eyes watery, but now with a different shine. She was no longer running away. She picked up her phone and hesitated, but then took a deep breath and decided it was time. With a tap, she sent a message to Lucas, asking to meet. The response came quickly. Lucas was available and suggested a coffee. Mariana's heart raced, the anxiety mixed with an expectation she hadn't felt in a long time. As she prepared to leave, she remembered what Anna had said about allowing herself to fail. What if that was what she needed? A chance to open up, to be vulnerable, and perhaps to find a new path. When she arrived at the cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee and the buzz of conversations welcomed her. She spotted Lucas sitting at a table, his eyes lost in thought. As she approached, insecurity returned, but Mariana forced herself to smile. He looked at her and smiled back, and in that moment, everything felt possible. Mariana sat down, and the words began to flow. Mariana realized that life was about taking risks and that true failure wasn't in making mistakes, but in not trying. With every exchanged word, she felt more confident, stronger. In that meeting, Mariana not only allowed herself to feel, but also decided that regardless of the outcome, she was on the right path. The journey of self-discovery was far from over, but in that moment, she knew she had taken an important step. She talked about her insecurities, about the fear of exposing herself and failing. Lucas listened attentively, and as she shared her vulnerabilities, Mariana realized she was not alone. He had his own struggles, his own fears. The connection between them began to strengthen, and the tension that had once paralyzed her now seemed to dissolve. The cafe became a safe space where they could both open up and explore what they felt. Fear still existed, but now it was just another element of life that she was willing to face. Mariana's story was unfolding in an unexpected way, and she was finally ready to embrace all its nuances. Mariana sat at the coffee table, her nervous hands fiddling with the edge of her cup. The conversation flowed, but with every word Lucas spoke, insecurity crept in again. It was as if a shadow hung over them, a reminder that despite the progress, there was still much to be resolved. As he talked about his struggles, something inside her cried out for attention. The desire to be understood and accepted mixed with the old feeling of inadequacy. Lucas interrupted her thoughts, asking, "Mariana, are you listening?" She blinked, trying to focus. He smiled, but there was a concern in his eyes. "I'm sorry, I was just thinking about how all of this is new to me." She forced a smile, but the truth was that the idea of fully opening up still terrified her. What would Lucas think if he knew the depth of her insecurities? The thought of him seeing her as weak made her hesitate. "Yeah, it's all so different," she replied, her voice trembling a bit. Silence fell between them, and Mariana felt a knot form in her stomach. What was going on in his mind? Did he see her as someone who had no control over her emotions? She didn't want to be that person. The desire to be strong, to show Lucas that she had overcome her struggles, almost kept her from being honest. In that moment, she recalled the words she had written down the night before. True success lay in being authentic. Mariana took a deep breath and decided it was time to take a risk again. "Lucas, I have been struggling with a lot of things. Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough, not just as an artist, but as a person." Lucas looked at her, a look of understanding on his face. "You're not alone, Mariana. I feel that way often too. The pressure to succeed can be overwhelming." Mariana felt a relief wash over her upon hearing those words. A connection was forming between them, a bond that seemed to grow stronger by the second. "I think I've spent so much time trying to fit in that I've lost sight of who I really am. And that has left me feeling lost." "It's normal to feel that way," Lucas replied, his voice gentle. "We all have our struggles. Sometimes the relentless pursuit of approval makes us forget what really matters." Those words echoed in Mariana's mind. She realized that the search for approval had distanced her from her essence. In that moment, she decided she no longer wanted to live in the shadow of her insecurities. Life was too short to worry about what others thought. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she said, feeling lighter. The conversation continued, and Mariana felt more confident sharing her experiences. But as they opened up, a new wave of doubts began to surface. What if, after this moment of vulnerability, Lucas didn't see her the same way? The fear of rejection lingered like a stubborn shadow. When the meeting came to an end, Mariana left the cafe with a mix of relief and apprehension. Lucas had been understanding, but uncertainty still loomed. What did he really think of her now? And how would this change their friendship? In the days that followed, Mariana found herself in a cycle of reflection. She began working on new pieces, but the pressure to create something perfect intensified. The voice of insecurity whispered in her ear, reminding her of her past failures. It felt like each brushstroke was a challenge, each line an internal struggle. "Why don't you try doing something different?" asked Anna, her closest friend, as she saw Mariana struggling in the studio. "Sometimes you need to step away from what you think you should be and just create. What do you really love?" Mariana hesitated. She knew she needed to reconnect with her passion for art, but the idea of failing again paralyzed her. I don't want to disappoint anyone." Anna smiled understandingly. "You shouldn't create for others, but for yourself. Remember that your imperfections are what make your art unique." Anna's words resonated within her. Mariana realized she was holding on to unrealistic expectations. It was time to let go of the pressure and allow herself to fail. True growth came from the courage to expose oneself. That night, Mariana decided to try something new. Instead of trying to create a masterpiece, she began doing free sketches without thinking about the outcome. With each line she drew, she felt freer. Art became an extension of who she was, not an obligation. Meanwhile, her relationship with Lucas was also evolving. They began meeting more often, exchanging ideas about their struggles and achievements. However, Mariana still grappled with the idea that he might be disappointed in her. Insecurity persisted, but there was a new hope in her heart. One night, as they walked through the city, Lucas surprised her by sharing his own vulnerabilities. He talked about his insecurities, about how the pressure to be a successful artist made him anxious. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just trying to please others," he confessed. Mariana felt that little by little they were opening up to each other. "I understand. It's hard to find a balance between being true and meeting others' expectations." "Yes, and it makes me think," Lucas continued, "how can we support each other on this journey? Sometimes we need someone by our side to remind us that we are more than our failures." Those words touched Mariana deeply. It was as if, by sharing their insecurities, they were creating a network of mutual support. In that moment, she felt that she had finally found a safe space to be who she truly was. The path ahead was still uncertain, but Mariana now felt that she had the strength to face her fears. The journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and with Lucas by her side, she was ready to embrace every challenge. It was a blank canvas, and Mariana was determined to paint it with all the colors her soul could offer. Mariana watched the city lights as she walked alongside Lucas. The streets were illuminated, but inside her there was a storm of emotions. It was a new chapter in her life, and despite all the insecurity, she felt that she was starting to find her way. The conversation they had in the cafe echoed in her mind. They both shared vulnerabilities, and that connection made her feel less alone. Lucas asked, "Have you ever thought about exhibiting your works? I think the world could benefit greatly from what you create." The question caught Mariana off guard. The idea of exposing her works to an audience seemed terrifying. "I don't know, Lucas. What if people don't like it? What if they think I'm not good enough?" He stopped and looked at her, his eyes full of sincerity. "Why are you still measuring yourself by others' opinions? You need to create for yourself first. What matters is what the art means to you." Those words penetrated deep into her heart. Mariana realized she was limiting herself out of fear of judgment. The flaws and insecurities that tormented her were not barriers, but steps in her journey. What truly mattered was authenticity, not external validation. In the following days, she decided to start working on a new series of paintings. Instead of worrying about perfection, Mariana allowed herself to make mistakes. Each brushstroke was a release. She remembered Anna's and Lucas's words and let creativity flow freely. It was no longer about creating something to impress, but about expressing her emotions and experiences. The canvas became a safe space where she could explore her insecurities, joys, and fears. One day, while working on a new painting, Mariana had an epiphany. She began to see her flaws as essential parts of her story, not as weaknesses. Each mistake transformed into a learning opportunity. By using vibrant colors and unexpected shapes, she started to create not just art, but a narrative about her journey of overcoming. "You look more radiant lately," Anna commented one day, while watching Mariana in the studio. "What changed?" Mariana smiled, feeling grateful for her friend's support. "I'm learning to accept myself. Every day, I'm trying to set aside the expectations I've placed on myself. And that's helping me create without fear." Anna nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "That's wonderful, Mari. True art comes from a place of honesty. The world needs your unique perspective." Anna's words fueled Mariana. She began to feel more confident in her ability to create. One night, determined to take a step further, she decided to send an email to a local gallery inquiring about the possibility of an exhibition. Her heart raced as she clicked the send button. It was an act of courage she never imagined she would have. The next morning, while having coffee, her phone buzzed. It was a response from the gallery. Mariana opened the email with trembling hands. To her surprise, the gallery was interested in seeing her works. A wave of relief and excitement washed over her. She felt that she was truly beginning to live the life she had always wanted. As the exhibition date approached, Mariana dedicated herself intensely. Lucas supported her throughout the process, helping her set up the works and preparing for the event. He encouraged her to talk about her art and share her story. People will connect with you, not just with your works. Your authenticity is what will make them special, he said. On the night of the opening, Mariana was nervous but also excited. The space was filled with people, and she felt her heart race as she saw the guests admiring her works. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the small stage. This collection is a part of me. Each painting represents a struggle, a victory, and a lesson learned. I hope that when you look at them, you see not just the art, but also the journey that brought me here. The words flowed like a river. Mariana felt light, as if she were shedding layers of insecurity. Looking out at the audience, she saw smiling faces, people who seemed connected to her stories. Lucas was there, smiling with pride. It was a moment of personal triumph she would never forget. After the exhibition, Mariana realized that her true success was not just in sales or in the approval of critics, but in the deep connection she had created with her art and with others. She had learned that vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness. In the days that followed, Mariana continued to explore her creativity, now free from the shackles of fear. Her friendship with Lucas deepened, and she realized that together they were building a space of support and growth. He also felt encouraged to continue his artistic journey, and together they became a source of inspiration for each other. Mariana now saw life differently. The lessons she learned helped her understand that each failure was an opportunity for rebirth, a new beginning. Her mind was clearer and her heart lighter. She accepted that the path would be filled with challenges, but with Lucas and her new perspectives, she was ready to face them authentically. Life was a blank canvas, and Mariana was determined to fill it with the vibrant colors of her true essence. Mariana was nervous. The day of her exhibition had finally arrived, and anxiety consumed her. While getting ready, she looked in the mirror and tried to find courage in her reflection. The soft light of the studio illuminated her paintings, but her mind was filled with doubts. What if no one liked it? What if people laughed at her? The memory of her past failures echoed in her thoughts, like a distant echo she couldn't silence. Lucas, always by her side, noticed the internal turmoil she was facing. He encouraged her to take a deep breath and remember what brought her here. You have worked so hard, Murray. What matters is that you are being true to yourself, he said, holding her hand firmly. Mariana looked at him, searching for a sign of confidence that could help her face her insecurities. When they arrived at the gallery, the atmosphere was vibrant. People were chatting and admiring the artwork, but to Mariana, everything seemed like a blur. Her heart raced, and she felt a knot in her stomach. When she finally entered the space, she saw that all eyes were on her. That moment disarmed her. Her voice faltered as she tried to introduce herself, and an awkward silence filled the room. She felt paralyzed, as if all her insecurities had materialized right there in front of her. The first group of visitors approached and began commenting on the artwork. The words coming from their mouths were complimentary, but Mariana still couldn't believe it. She remembered every criticism she had faced, every negative comment that had made her hesitate in her artistic journey. In a moment of vulnerability, she decided to step away a bit, looking for a quieter corner of the gallery. There, alone, Mariana began to reflect on her journey. She remembered the days when she locked herself in the studio, battling against self-criticism. The failures that made her feel small now seemed, in some way, part of something bigger. But the shadow of fear still haunted her. She looked at the blank canvas that was her life and questioned whether she was really ready to fill it with her colors. Lucas found her there, isolated, and approached her. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his concern evident. Mariana wanted to respond that she was, but tears threatened to escape. What if all this is a mistake? What if I can't do it? She felt the pressure of a world of expectations and the possibility of failure crushing her. You are not alone. We all have fears. Remember that this exhibition is about you and your journey. It's not about pleasing others. And if you fail, what happens? You learn and start over, Lucas said, his voice soft but firm. He encouraged her to look at what she had achieved so far. You are much stronger than you think. Those words touched her deeply. Mariana realized that the true failure wasn't being judged, but giving up on herself. With her breathing a little calmer, she decided to face what awaited her. As she returned to the main room, she felt the vibrant energy of the guests. What had once seemed like a crowd of strangers had transformed into an opportunity to share her story. When she finally stepped onto the stage, the tension was palpable. Mariana looked at the audience and for the first time felt that she wasn't there to be judged, but to connect. This collection is a reflection of my life, my struggles and victories, she began, her voice a little shaky but determined. When I started painting, I was scared. Scared of failing, scared of not being accepted. But each brushstroke was like a step towards freedom. As she spoke, her emotions began to flow. She shared her insecurities, her doubts, and more importantly, how each of those feelings had contributed to her growth. I learned that vulnerability is a strength, and that each mistake is an opportunity to start over. Art is a reflection of life, and life is full of imperfections. The words resonated in the room, and Mariana saw faces light up. Some people applauded, others smiled empathetically. It was as if, in that moment, she was weaving an invisible connection between everyone present. The tension that had once dominated her began to dissipate, giving way to a feeling of belonging and acceptance. At the end of her speech, Mariana felt a weight lifted. She was no longer alone. She had found her voice and with it, freed herself from the fear that had imprisoned her. When she stepped down from the stage, Lucas was waiting for her with a radiant smile. "You were amazing," he said, enveloping her in a warm hug. That night, Mariana realized that true wealth wasn't in sales or superficial recognition, but in the connections she formed and in the confidence she began to cultivate within herself. She had overcome her fears and discovered that her art was not just a means of expression but a bridge between her soul and the world. As the exhibition continued, Mariana felt more alive than ever. Her journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace every challenge that came her way, armed with the wisdom that life, with all its imperfections, was a blank canvas worth filling with courage, love, and authenticity. Mariana's exhibition was a turning point. After that night, her life began to unfold in ways she had never imagined. The conversations in the gallery were not limited to compliments about her work, but transformed into meaningful dialogues about vulnerability, struggle, and overcoming. Mariana realized that her art had the power to touch people, to connect their experiences and emotions. As the weeks went by, Mariana dedicated herself to creating new works, not just as a means of personal expression, but as a way to inspire others, and styles challenging her to step out of her comfort zone. Together they spent hours discussing art, life, and dreams. Their friendship strengthened, and Mariana felt she had not just a partner, but a confidant. He helped her see that success was not tied to awards or immediate recognition, but to the journey of growth and learning they were embarking on together. In one of those conversations while watching the sunset, Mariana shared her fears that still lingered. She began receiving invitations to participate in workshops and lectures where she shared her story. With each new opportunity, her confidence grew, and the feeling that she was making a difference in someone's life motivated her even more. Mariana discovered that by opening up about her insecurities, she helped others feel more comfortable sharing their vulnerabilities as well. Lucas, who had always been by her side, became her biggest supporter. He encouraged her to explore new techniques. Sometimes I still feel that flutter of nerves before a presentation. It's as if the insecurities want to come back, she said, looking at the horizon. Lucas looked at her with understanding and replied, "But you face that. Every time you speak, you are reaffirming yourself. The fear doesn't disappear, but you become stronger by facing it." Those words echoed in Mariana's mind. She realized that the journey of self-discovery was ongoing. True success was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Incorporating this new wisdom into her life became a priority. Mariana started practicing self-acceptance, learning to value her achievements, even the small ones. At the same time, she also began to look at those around her differently. Her experience made her more empathetic. Mariana got involved in community projects where she offered art classes to children from underprivileged communities. She wanted to show them that artistic expression was a form of liberation and that everyone had a voice. These moments became an essential part of her routine, bringing joy not only to the children, but also to herself. Mariana saw how the life stories of each of them were unique and how art could serve as a channel for each to express themselves. The lessons she learned from the exposure reverberated in her personal life. Mariana began to reconnect with longtime friends, those she had set aside due to her insecurities. She realized that by opening up, she was allowing others to do the same. The conversations became deeper and the friendships more meaningful. Mariana understood that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but a bridge that led her to more authentic relationships. The challenges that once seemed insurmountable became opportunities for growth. Mariana no longer shied away from mistakes. On the contrary, she began to see them as part of the learning process. One day, while working on a new painting, she made a mistake that left her frustrated. Instead of giving up, she took a deep breath and looked at the canvas with fresh eyes. "What if I turn this into something different?" she thought. This new perspective led her to create a piece that became one of her favorites. It was a perfect representation of her journey, full of colors, unexpected shapes, and above all, authenticity. Mariana's life was changing, but not just hers. Those around her began to feel the difference. Lucas, inspired by her determination and courage, decided to pursue his dreams of photography as well. He started capturing moments of everyday life, finding beauty in the little things. Mariana got involved in his projects, helping him see the world through a new lens. Together they created a series of exhibitions that celebrated the beauty of life in its simplest forms. Over time, Mariana realized that her art was not just in her paintings, but in every interaction she had with the world. She felt alive, connected, and, more importantly, at peace with herself. Looking back, she saw how her journey transformed her, showing that difficult experiences, when faced with courage, can lead to a life rich in meaning and deep relationships. Thus, Mariana continued her journey not just as an artist, but as a person who embraced every part of herself, ready to face new challenges with an open heart and a resilient mind. She finally understood that the true art of life was in living with authenticity and courage, navigating imperfections with grace and strength. Mariana looked out the window of her studio, observing the city that had become so familiar. The streets that once felt cold now pulsed with life and color, just like her works. A few years ago, she felt lost, trapped by her doubts and insecurities. But now, the artist she had become reflected a new reality, full of possibilities and self-discovery. Each brushstroke on her canvases was a celebration of the journey she had traveled. The workshops she had held with children from underprivileged communities had become an essential part of her life. She fondly remembered the illuminated faces around her, the laughter, and the excitement of trying art for the first time. Mariana was committed to not just teaching, but also learning from those children. Each of them had a unique story, a way of seeing the world that inspired her to seek new ways to express herself. This made her realize how universal art was, a language that everyone could speak, regardless of their origins. She also continued to strengthen her friendship with Lucas. Together, they explored different forms of art and supported each other in their respective journeys. Lucas, who had ventured into photography, captured the essence of life in his images, showing beauty in the little things. Mariana felt grateful to have someone so special by her side, with whom she could share her victories and challenges. The connection between them deepened with each passing day, and she couldn't help but notice how the friendship had become a foundation in her life. Over time, Mariana realized that the fear that once paralyzed her was now just a shadow that accompanied her. She learned to cope with it, to understand that there was no problem in feeling insecure. What mattered was what she did with those feelings. Instead of allowing herself to be dominated by them, she transformed them into fuel for her creativity. With each new exhibition, each new conversation about her art, she felt stronger and closer to her true essence. Reflecting on her journey led her to realize that true success was not about being recognized for her work or winning awards. For Mariana, success manifested in the connections she had made, the lives she had touched, and the stories she had helped to tell. Looking back, she saw how each challenge shaped her, how each failure taught her, and how each new beginning propelled her toward a bright future. Mariana understood that life is made of cycles, and that every ending is, in fact, a new beginning. Each day, she woke up with the determination to live according to the lessons she had learned. Gratitude became a daily practice, and she began to cherish not only the significant achievements, but also the simple moments that brought joy. The friendship she had rekindled also inspired her. Mariana realized that by opening up, she had encouraged others to do the same. Deep conversations with longtime friends brought forth stories that had been kept hidden, revealing vulnerabilities and strengthening bonds. Empathy and understanding became pillars in her relationships, transforming her way of seeing the world and the people around her. She remembered a specific moment when a friend shared his own struggles with her. Mariana listened attentively, offering support and understanding. In that moment, she realized that her own journey was not just about her. It was about everyone around her, about how her experiences could inspire others to open up and face their battles. As the years passed, Mariana became a mentor, not only for the children she taught, but also for young artists seeking guidance. She shared her story, her failures, and her achievements, showing that art is a reflection of who we are and what we live. Mariana believed that everyone had a voice and that art could be the means to express it. Sometimes, when looking at her works, Mariana wondered how a simple brushstroke could carry so much meaning. But she knew that it was the sum of all her experiences, the ups and downs, that brought her creations to life. Art had become an extension of her soul, a reflection of her journey of overcoming and self-discovery. Deep down, Mariana knew that life was an eternal evolution. Each day brought new lessons, new perspectives, and new opportunities. Thus, she continued to forge her path, living with authenticity and courage, ready to face whatever came her way. The artist, now also a mentor and friend, had found her place in the world, where her voice resonated not only on the canvases, but in the lives she touched. The transformation that began with a simple exhibition now spread like the colors in her paintings, illuminating everything around her. Mariana allowed herself a moment of pause, looking out the window as the sunlight illuminated the city, reflecting on the vibrant colors she loved so much. The journey she had taken brought her to that point, and each step taught her something valuable. Over the years, her art transformed into a channel for expressing her deepest emotions and at the same time a vehicle for connecting with others. It was as if each brushstroke on her canvases echoed her own life, full of ups and downs, challenges and victories. Sitting in her favorite chair, surrounded by her works, Mariana began to reflect on everything she had experienced. Each workshop with the children, each laugh shared with Lucas, each meaningful conversation with old friends contributed to the woman she had become. Art, once a source of anxiety, was now a safe space where she could be true to herself. Once Lucas told her that art is like life, Mariana. Sometimes we need to make an imperfect stroke to see the beauty that emerges from it. That phrase remained etched in her memory, a reminder that failures are part of the process, not an end in themselves. Mariana smiled as she remembered how, in her early days of creation, she worried excessively about perfection. Today, she understood that imperfection was what made her works authentic. Each mistake taught her something, she thought. Each new beginning brought her closer to who she truly was. In that moment of introspection, she realized that true success was not measured by awards or recognition, but by the ability to touch lives. The stories of the children she taught, the experiences shared with Lucas, and the support she offered to friends in difficult times were, for her, the most meaningful achievements. Mariana felt a wave of gratitude for everything, for the lessons learned, the bonds built, and the opportunities for growth that life had provided her. She also remembered a particular day when one of the boys from her workshop, Tiago, said, "Mariana, you taught me that I can dream. Not only that, but that I can make it happen." Those words moved her deeply. It was this spirit of hope and creativity that she wanted to spread. And so each time she felt insecure, each time fear arose, she remembered Tiago and so many other children who, like him, became part of her story. The friendship with Lucas, which began as a simple exchange of ideas, blossomed into something deep and transformative. They became allies in their artistic and emotional journeys, always ready to support each other. Mariana told him during one of their conversations that he always reminded her of what truly matters. The connection they shared, the honesty in their exchanges, that is what counts. Lucas smiled and replied that she taught him to see the world through different lenses. That is art. Mariana realized that by opening up to others, she also encouraged them to reveal themselves. The stories that were once kept silent were now shared, strengthening bonds and creating a space for empathy. Deep conversations became one of the pillars of her life. She learned that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but rather a powerful form of connection. Looking toward the future, Mariana felt a renewed confidence. She knew that life would still present challenges, but now she was better equipped to face them. The lessons she had learned made her stronger and wiser. Art, friendship, and empathy were her guides, and she was ready to continue her journey. What life had taught her was clear. Every ending is, in fact, a new beginning. Her journey was proof that when you connect with others, life becomes richer and more meaningful. If you have ever felt lost or insecure, remember that every step counts. Share your experiences, your struggles, and your achievements, for this can inspire others to move forward. And if this story resonated with you, like and subscribe so we can explore more about the beauty of life, art, and human connections together. Let's transform our stories into something even more grand. The art she created was now a representation of her own evolution, a reflection of what it meant to live authentically. Mariana smiled at the thought of all the possibilities yet to come, and so she decided that her mission was to continue sharing her art and her experiences, inspiring others to find their voices and express themselves. Mariana knew that everyone has a story to tell and that art is one of the most beautiful ways to do so.